Why Dr. Wall can defeat Everald Warmington. With Jamaicans going to the polls on September 3, the political fever is certainly high as both major political parties try to squeeze every ounce of what's left on the campaign trail. All major pollsters are forecasting a close contest with the winner likely to emerge by the finest of margins. There are many battleground seats that could go either way. However, here in the southwest of St. Catherine, many believe veteran politician Everald Warmington has turned this constituency into a fortified fortress for the Jamaica Labour Party. Needless to say, though, elections have delivered some shocking upsets in the past and will likely produce a few unforeseeable wins this time around. One of these shocks could come from St. Catherine Southwestern. Yes, you heard me correctly, It is a possibility that Everald Warmington could lose this seat, which, if happens, will be one of the biggest upsets in our political history. What I will seek to do in this commentary is to put forward some important observations that many persons, particularly the diehard laborites, who I realize have consistently overlooked these critical points. Now, Warmington, who is 73 years old and certainly a political veteran of more than 50 years, thrashed Dr. Wall when the two face off in the 2020 general elections, winning by over 5,000 votes to secure a fifth consecutive term as the people's elected representative, with better known as Member of Parliament. It was a harrowing defeat for Dr. Wall, who was then 42 years old and who we know is a medical doctor by profession, but was also making his debut in representational politics. Bear in mind also that Dr. Wall took over the constituency following the sudden death of Rudyard Kipling the year before. So he had basically like a year to prepare, which in truth wasn't enough time in the life of politics. Now, 5 years later, Dr. Wall, who is also a native and a resident of this constituency, is, however, I believe, wiser and more experienced after that bitter lesson served by Warmington. But credit to Dr. Wall. He had spent the last 5 years building up his political stock on the ground, making himself present at just about every event being staged in the constituency. And I believe this has increased his visibility and also his own personal brand. Now, if you remember, up to now, you would have seen Dr. Wall at the basic school, primary school, high school graduation, whether he is there to bring greetings or just a special guest, he has been visible. You also see him at the nine nights, the candle lights, the setup, the funerals, right? Also as a guest, also bringing greetings. You also would see him at the special church service, like some churches having their anniversary, whether it be 100-year anniversary or 50th year anniversary. You see him. You see him at the church's harvest. Um, you see him at the civic group functions. Like the Chamber of Commerce would have their meetings. He will also attend. You see him at the flag raising ceremony, and you see him participating a lot in just about everything. Very, very visible. And of course, that is strategic. But that is also important in politics too as well. So his profile, by doing so, his profile has been strengthened further, especially through his annual free back to school medical missions that he has been hosting every summer. This would have also offset the cost for many parents as well. Think about a single mother with 3 children, how much it is for a back to school medical. Roughly $3,000-4,000, I believe. So that parent would now save at least $9,000 because she would now take her children to one of his medical missions, and they would um, do the medical there for free. And he has been doing that now. In fairness to, even before his entrance into representational politics, he has been doing that. It's just that he has ramped it up, right? So that is also very, very crucial. Now, since 2020, he has also established the Dr. Kurt Waul Foundation, through which he has been able to assist many children and many adults in various fields of education, health, sports, and entrepreneurship, right? So he has been doing the work on the ground. What has also made him popular as well is the Dr. Kurt Waul Corner League football competition that is held now annually at the Bodo playfield in Old Harbour Bay. This has become a staple in not just Old Harbour Bay, but in the constituency, because it engages hundreds of youth from every crevice and corner within within the parish, right? Or at least this side of the parish, I must say. So for those of us who have our ears on the ground and have been making copious notes, it came as no surprise when Dr. Waul ran in the 2024 local government elections and dethroned the JLP incumbent, Lloyd Grant, aka Father Brass, or some say Brass. Brass is widely seen as Warmington's right hand man. So this was a massive, massive blow to Warmington. But it didn't come as a surprise to many of us because we observed Dr. Waul doing a lot of the work on the ground, a lot of work in the Old Harbour Bay division as well. Of course, we know he's also from Old Harbour Bay, right? So you understand the the culture and the psyche of the people more than anybody else. Equally, Brass is also from Old Harbour Bay, but the work that Dr. Waul has been doing and is currently doing, he was able to to get the votes, and it didn't come as a surprise to many of us who understand politics, right? And therefore, so his victory to reclaim Old Harbour South for the PMP in the local government elections is proof that he has the tools, the temerity, and tenacity to compete and possibly, quite possibly, defeat Warmington. Dr. Waul is the antithesis of Everald Warmington. Approachable, respectful. Such personality traits have made Waul a very likable guy who is often described as a very nice gentleman. It might seem frivolous to many of us, but yes, there are people whose vote will be ultimately determined by such persona portrayed by Dr. Waul. People do look at a candidate and say, I like the fact that I can have a conversation with him. We can disagree, and he's not being disrespectful or dismissive towards my point of view. And they will give him the vote purely on that basis, right? Another critical observation that must be considered is how much Andrew Holness's political capital has fallen since the last election, which will have a negative impact on all JLP members of parliament, except for those operating in constituencies classified as garrisons. So, the West Kingston and the St. Andrew South and the St. Andrews Southwest. You know, these are constituencies that we often classify as garrisons. It doesn't matter who you put there, they are going to vote for that party only, right? Now, we must also bear in mind, not Olaba, but Southwest St. Catherine is not a garrison constituency, right? And therefore, Everald Warmington doesn't have any divine right to win the seat. He doesn't have that assurance like the garrison constituencies in Jamaica. So we know that Warmington polled just over 11,000 votes in the last election when he defeated Dr. Waul was largely due to Holness's pull factor in 2020. But we must bear in mind that the Prime Minister's near immortal status back then has vanished now, exacerbated by questions surrounding his finances, low economic growth numbers, and the continued rise in cost of living. So that massive political capital that he had, right? A lot of persons vote, choose the JLP, not because of the MP, but because of the leader of the party. And I will touch on that a little bit further. But we must also bear in mind that it is a fact also that the PMP's base did not come out following the bitter internal battles between factions aligned to then party leader Peter Phillips and former Security Minister Peter Bunting, who subsequently lost his seat in a JLP tsunami that almost painted the entire country green. Those wounds within the PMP have since been healed, with comrades rallying behind Mark Golding, despite Golding's lack of natural charisma. That is pretty obvious. In my view, it is unlikely that Warmington will match or even surpass that astonishing feat of polling 11,000 votes, as Dr. was influencing South, which is the whole Harbour South division I'm referring to, has seen some voters switching green shirts for the orange brand. That was pretty obvious in the local government election. They were quite a lot of known persons in Old Harbour South who were who are known back then to be JLP supporters who voted PNP for Dr. Waul. And we expect that to continue. We expect a lot of JLP persons to switch and support him. That is expected. With that being said, though, it is still going to be a mighty task to unseat Warmington. But it is the first time the PNP has had a candidate working the ground in Southwest for such a prolonged period. First time. All the other candidates prior to now, they didn't spend any considerable amount of time working the ground, getting to know the lay of the land, interacting with the people, being accessible, being visible. Dr. Waul has done that. But despite this, in my view, though, Warmington remains the howling favorite. To use a horse race term, right? Or a sporting term. He's definitely the howling favorite. But there is no doubt that momentum is with Dr. Waul, who, like I said earlier, is wiser, fitter, stronger, and more prepared this time around for a second clash against a political juggernaut in Everald Warmington. It is going to be a close contest, I can tell you that. So it's going to be very close. I don't foresee this massive margin of victory should Warmington win, which is based on history. It is expected of him to win. But if he wins, it will be nowhere near that 5,000 margin of difference. Remember, Dr. Waul polled 6,000 votes, and quite a few, well, thousands of of comrades did not come out to vote, not just here in Southwest, but across the island, right? So this argument that JLP is going to run away with it, and Warmington here will dispatch the challenge of Waul easily. I don't think so. It is going to be extremely close. The polls says the contest will be extremely close, and I expect this seat to be very close. This will be Warmington's biggest challenge since his return to representational politics in 1997. He lost to Jennifer Edwards when he came back into representational politics in 1997. Many persons didn't know that Warmington at the time was probably about 30 years old or less than 30 years old when he won his first election in 1980. But in 1983, he left because of a falling out between him and Edward Seaga. Right? So it is going to be very, very difficult for him this time around because of the things that I've mentioned earlier. Dr. Waul has been underground, he has been visible, he has learned his lesson, he has done everything that you expect from a challenger in politics. This is what you expect of somebody who wants to win a seat, right? Who wants to become MP. He has done everything, right? He even hosted a town hall meeting, a virtual town hall meeting, which persons can go and watch whenever they're ready, outlining his own plans and ambitions for the constituency. We haven't seen that from Warmington. Warmington also has the opportunity through the state of the constituency debate. And I can't recall seen any of those presentations over the years from Warmington, you know. So people rightly will ask the question, what is Warmington's plan for the constituency? Warmington hasn't been able to utilize the platform in Parliament to outline his plans for the constituency. If he has done so, he hasn't been consistent enough in doing so. But what is sure is that every time you see Dr. Waul appearing at a funeral, appearing at a church service, appearing at a function, he will mention ideas that he have for the constituency and what he thinks needs to be done. And that is why I believe that voters are warming up to Dr. Waul. But like I said before, it's going to be extremely difficult, nonetheless, to dislodge Everald Warmington.